Brittany Gowan, thank you so much for joining us on the Plan Trainers podcast today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you guys.
We're glad you're here too. We wanted to know if you have a moment of gratitude to share with us and the listeners.
Yeah, I think that for me, gratitude is found in the little things. So I like to look into nature for the little new pieces of plants or flowers that come up. And I think that we can find it through the little moments in life.
Definitely. And I think that it's interesting that you included the plants and the flowers, and we're definitely going to get into nature today. Before we do, I know that you had a vegetarian lifestyle for a very long time. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you found that and what impacted that?
Yeah, growing up, I was an athlete. I've always been prioritizing what I'm putting into my body, how I'm fueling my body. And I've lived a vegetarian diet for many years, but definitely over the past 15 years, that's what I've focused on. And I found that I think it definitely has helped with my energy. I think it also helps with my mindset. And I think that when you know that you're giving yourself the proper nutrients or supportive nutrients, that it is a motivator to stay with what you're doing. So it's it's been a good path for me, and it also aligns with my values and my appreciation for all living things. So it's important to who I am.
That's great. So was it that influenced your your what's the word? Was it that influenced you embracing nature, or did embracing nature influence that? Which came first, the seed or the tofu?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, growing up, my parents are nature lovers and always encouraged my brother and I to notice nature in certain ways. So I think I grew up with appreciation for the natural world, their love of animals, and I think that that has, it came from my lifestyle choices, came from that upbringing and that appreciation for the natural world in general.
So let's get right into the nature aspect. So what is so important about nature for people to actually get into, and what does that mean when we say get into nature, or what is nature from your perspective?
Yeah, I think that getting into nature can mean a variety of things. Maybe for someone, it's going to a bigger landscape like a like national park, or it's going into a small community garden like I do in New York City. And I think that what it can mean for everyone is taking that intentional break in their day, their moments of calm for themselves and connection, and also connection to a broader perspective and picture. So I think there's many ways for people to embrace nature, and it can be, and like I said about smaller moments, it can be smaller things than we expect. So connecting in different ways and opening yourself up to different opportunities.
So what effect does that have on somebody's stress level or the nervous system?
So I think in general, that connecting with nature obviously helps us to release stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. It also helps with our happy hormones like dopamine, and it allows us to be in a place where we're less likely to ruminate. We're embracing the present moment, and when we're doing that, we aren't thinking about the past or what is yet to come, and it allows us to have these calming moments that when we feel re-energized and restored, and hopefully that continues throughout your day. For myself, when I go outside in New York, it can be stressful, chaotic, but I get a little piece of nature and I instantly feel that connection to greenery and the broader world that really restores my calm in a short amount of time. So I've been doing it for a long time, and I think that I can feel it instantly, but anyone can start doing it, and I think that they will feel the results as well.
It's cold in New York right now, isn't it? Like, how do you get outside? Do you have to, I mean, I guess you
Bundle up.
dress properly for it, but people would probably say, you know what, it's too cold today. I don't want to go outside.
Or people might say it's too hot today, depending where they
I
live here.
guess, but
Yeah.
is there another way for them to interact with nature other than actually leaving their house, or they have to get out there?
No, I think you can engage with nature through intentional thought, which is what I do as well. I think that we can imagine ourselves in a natural scene. And this is what I work with a lot of my clients on with managing stress, even goal setting and achievement, and managing you're in a natural setting that you like. I always like to go back to a beach in France. It's always been like a place that's felt very calm to me. And I just imagine walking on the beach, imagine what the tide is like at that moment, and I think that it allows, again, to stay connected to that broader perspective, and that, yes, you don't need to go out into nature to feel the benefits of nature and have your mindset switch. So I like to do both. When I first moved to New York and lived and I worked in an office, I would imagine I was at this beach, or I was imagine I was somewhere else. And even in those moments, you can reconnect to the calm.
And what about plants and flowers in indoors?
Yeah, I mean, I love houseplants, and I think that having plants and inside your house is a great way to feel connected to the natural world, and it's a great practice of caring for something else, and increasing your compassion towards things, and having this living breathing, organism in your house that you are responsible for and connected to. I have like a big monstera in front of me, and they are normally in the rainforest. So having that connection to different places in nature, and I think that we can again do it with small plants, big plants, and going outside.
So you haven't used the buzzwords, but I mean, we're talking, it sounds like visualization or meditation of some sort. And professional athletes, many of the great ones have been using that for years and years, but it seems that our younger population are kind of intimidated by those words, or they think it's all a joke, but it's clearly an important piece to the athlete. So maybe you could share a little bit of how that impacted you as an athlete personally.
Yeah, I think positive visualization, again, whatever we want to call these words, there's a lot of definitions, but a lot of them mean similar things. Growing up, I had my mom who was working in meditation and mindfulness, and she was not my official coach in figure skating, but she was the side coach that was very helpful. And she really helped me with the visualizing side of it. So I would imagine my program, imagine myself doing well, imagine myself succeeding, also imagining being okay with results that maybe aren't what you want as well. So setting yourself to be okay with what's going on, no matter if it's maybe what you expected or what you're looking for, but having that where you're very clear in your mind of your objective, of what you're looking to achieve, and being okay with things that are maybe not going well. I taught figure skating for many years, and I taught various levels, but I enjoyed the learn to skate aspect of skating, and having people who had never been on ice before they would go on the ice and say, now imagine yourself taking steps and how that's going to feel, and getting them in the mindset of saying like, okay, this is something I can do. It's going to be a big learning curve, but it's not out of my ability. So I believe in the power of the mind, and visualizing success, and also visualizing calm and centered. So I think it's huge, and it's one of my biggest you know things that I advocate for.
And how would you bring nature in for an athlete that wanted to do better? Is there a connection there?
Yeah, I think in general that when you embrace nature, it again allows you to come back to the present moment. You're remembering your purpose, your mission, the things you would like to achieve, and having those moments of pause, getting out of your head and getting into nature is something I like to say, is having those intentional moments where you're seeing that something completely different from what you're focusing on, but allowing your mind to reset. Also, I think in nature, you can see certain growth or certain things where tree limbs have to be flexible of the tree next to them, and how we have to be like agile and flexible and willing to bend and turn. So I think that nature can teach us a lot of life skills of resilience, perseverance, and all these things that athletes and people need to keep going on the things they're looking to achieve.
That's so interesting. It's taking it to a whole other level because I think a lot of people could have visualized using nature as you feel calmer, you have fresher air, you're not boxed in, like, right, all of those things, endorphins, getting moving and all of that, but to actually use the way that nature moves and grows and interacts to achieve a goal that you're trying to achieve, whether it's athletic or even in business. I mean, you might think about, like, in the rainforest, how it's all connected. All the trees
Right.
kind of connect up, and you might use that as an analogy for your team connecting up and working together as an ecosystem to be able
Yeah.
to grow and build. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's why I've included, besides the practices that are nature centered, some of these metaphors or references. I think that everyone has a connection to nature. It's a recognizable material to use that is familiar. It's not threatening. It's, everyone has some story, and having these references or touch points allows people just to think of certain things differently, and allows them to say, okay, that's a different perspective of how I could do a certain thing, or how we work together, or how I continue to stay motivated to achieve certain things. So I've definitely used this in my life too, and seeing examples in New York and in nature in New York to say, okay, like this little plant on the sidewalk, it's still going, like it's against all odds, like all of us, we can do the same. So there's a lot of references that you can use. I think you just have to be open to it, and willing to look for it too in your own life and the day to day.
So what would somebody do if they had a goal, or if they needed to persevere, they needed to make sure that they're showing up every day? Give us like a real life example of what somebody can do using nature to get on it and not fluff off.
Yeah. I think that we can, well, there's so many. I think that you can see how that nature takes like calculated steps. It's a gradual process. It's not, everything doesn't bloom in unison, and that you can take these little steps and monitor your process along the way, and see that there are certain seasons for things. Like maybe it's time for you to grow in a different way, or you're building, or maybe it's time for you to really bloom and really have the confidence to step into that place. And I think that these examples in nature can allow you to use it in your own life, of saying, okay, I'm on this, like winter, like this is a season when certain things are not growing, but everything's underneath the soil waiting for their moment, and we can feel that same way. And knowing that we can too, like, plant those seeds in order for them to, the tulips to bloom in the spring. But it's kind of like you have to plant those seeds and keep on going without seeing the results initially. So I think that's one way that people can connect to nature for their motivation, their targeted success, or just to, when they get up in the morning, like, what am I going to do today? Okay, like I see these examples in nature, like I can keep going.
That as you're talking, I've definitely heard, instead of like business quarters, I've heard it referred to as seasons. And this is your busy season, like it's your hot season, it's your cold season, right? What's happening in your business at that time of year? If you're not getting in a lot of clientele, then you're working in the back end. So I've heard that. And of course, sowing seeds. I'm trying to think of what his name is. He talks about that a lot, and he tells a beautiful story about it. Oh, when I think of it, maybe we'll have to put it
I
in the
feel
show
like,
notes.
yeah.
Yeah, it will put in the show notes at Plan Trainers. But yeah, I'm sure there's lots of business coaches that have spoken about that. But that's really, really interesting. And I mean, it's also the idea of nurturing, right?
Right.
Whether it's children, whether it's pets, whether it's your plants at home, whether it's your business, whether it's relationships, you've got to nurture it. And nature, like nature nurture, right? Like
Yeah.
yeah, like the world has to be nurtured. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I can easily
And
see how somebody walks out, I'm stressed, they need a break. I walk out into the park and it's a beautiful day and I could take some deep breaths and get over my stressful situation. How would I use nature though to help motivate me to do better or do differently or do something that needs to get done?
I think that with being in nature, you can have obviously positive feelings for yourself, and that can translate hopefully into, say, you go back having positive self-talk, or having where you feel more resilient. I think that the way we talk to ourselves is a huge component of what we're able to get done or what we're able to stay focused on. And I think that when you're involved in nature and you see that hopefulness, or you see that empathy, that compassion, like you feel those emotions, you can start to feel that for yourself too. I think that it's easy to get down on ourselves, and easy to see maybe on social media the competition of certain things, and maybe to feel like, you know, you're not doing enough or you need to do more. And I think that the way we talk to ourselves really can determine our personal success. And I think that nature can give us that softness, but also that energy to engage in a desired way.
So if somebody hasn't really considered nature as part of their day-to-day lifestyle, or maybe they have they know it's something that they're supposed to do, how do you recommend that they get started? What would first steps be?
I think that you can start, if you're able in the morning, just to either look at a house plant. I like to say, like, you know, again, the little details, like notice the texture, the pattern, the shades of green, and spend just little moments throughout the day. If you start in the morning, like notice the shape, the color of a house plant, or look outside to a tree, notice the shape of the like tree branches or the color of the bark, and having these little integrations into your day. And I think that if we start in the morning, I believe that whatever we do like in the morning, how we start our days really projects like what we're going to do for the rest of the day, and how our mind is going to want certain things, getting certain dopamine. And I think that if we can have a little nature in the morning, whether it's just looking out the window or taking a short little power walk, but the things that I think are the most lasting are things that come easy and are enjoyable. So finding something related to nature that gives you that, and that you feel like you can sustain on a weekly basis, that doesn't become a chore, is something that I would encourage. And even for me, like even just dusting off like my house plant and having that connection, like it's a little thing, but it's that continual progression of being connected to this calm.
When I dust my houseplant, I talk to it. Like, especially like,
Yeah.
especially the orchids, like the long leaves on the
Oh,
orchids,
yes.
I find they get so
Yes.
dusty, and I'm like, "I'm sorry I let you get dusty, little plant.
Yeah.
Here we go."
Aw. Well, I mean, there's a lot of science that they feel the vibrations, they feel, you know, the positivity. So, I think, you know, that is great. And I've definitely said, "You're doing so well." I mean, and in a way, you're saying that kind of stuff, and it's also it bounces back to you. So I think that similar to maybe saying it in a mirror or saying to someone else, like if you're saying it to a house plant, you know, no
Sure.
shade.
Yeah, no shade. If affirmations feel weird to you to say, yeah, say it to your houseplant.
Right. So are them. They're gonna be
Yeah.
fine with it.
What kind of houseplants do you recommend?
I think that it's starting out obviously easier, something that I like, actually not huge plants, but bigger plants that don't dry out as quickly. I think that what becomes a task with keeping plants in the house is when they are higher maintenance. So maybe a medium-sized one that you can water once a week, doesn't require as much sunlight. I do like monsteras, bird of paradise. I mean, just for the architecture, I think of the design factor of those, but something that you feel like you can sustain. And it's similar to our goals, or like being out in nature. What seems the most approachable path? And I think something that takes concerted effort, but less effort, is a good way to begin.
And I heard
Definitely.
you earlier say, in maybe not in these words, but it's about being consistent and taking small steps to grow towards consistency rather than trying to do too much too soon. And the benefit of consistency of being with nature in nature is what's going to make a big difference.
I believe so. And consistency for you could be just once or twice a week, getting out and maybe taking a walk, but having that conscious, intentional decision to include this in your life. I think that that is the biggest impact when you're being present about something, and you're really wishing that this that becomes part of your lifestyle, and it's not just a check off, like I went outside today. So and with goal setting and with athletes, it's all connected. There's a million references and how we can relate these things, but it really is what are willing to commit to, and the small things we're willing to do with regularity.
Beautiful. I absolutely love it. So anybody who's listening, double points to you for listening today. If you are out in nature already listening to this, head over to Plant Trainers on Instagram. Let us know what is your outdoor activity. How are you connecting with nature? Join the conversation there. And Brittany, where would you like people to go to reach out to you if they'd like to learn a little bit more about you and follow you?
Yeah, they can go to my website. It's brittanygowan.com. And I'm on Instagram at Brittany Gowan, which is pretty easy. So you can find me there.
Amazing. And is there anything that you're working on now? Any big projects?
Yes, I have a book coming out very soon. It's called Turn to the Sun, Your Guide to Release Stress and Cultivate Better Health Through Nature. And it's a lot about what we talked about today, and planting the seeds for personal growth and releasing stress and supporting your positive mental and physical health.
Amazing. We look forward to checking out that book. We'll drop the links in our show notes at planttrainers.com. Brittany, thanks so much for being here on the Plant Trainers podcast.
Thank you. This was fun. I appreciate it.